It has been nearly 2 weeks since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, and state abortion laws are in what can only be described as constant flux. A new Politico report highlights how these laws are changing in some states on a near daily basis. So far, courts have blocked abortion bans from taking effect in 8 states. Megan Messerly joins us now. She's a healthcare reporter at Politico. So, Megan, in your Politico piece out today, you report that legality of abortion has flipped around in some states after the Supreme Court's ruling. How is that happening? What are the impacts on the ground?
Yeah, thanks, Major. Just like you mentioned, these laws have sometimes been changing on a day-by-day, in some states an hour-by-hour basis. And this all has to do with how these abortion laws are playing out in the courts. In some states, there are enjoined abortion bans that predate the Dobbs decision. We've seen Republican attorneys general go to court to ask those bans to be lifted. In other states, we've seen trigger bans take effect, barring access to the procedure. Then we've seen abortion rights proponents go to state courts to then have those injunctions or have those laws blocked, as they have been in some instances. And based on the court action, we've seen this change rapidly. Just for instance, yesterday in Florida, the state's 15-week abortion ban went into effect on July 1st. Yesterday morning, on Tuesday, a judge briefly enjoined the law before there was an appeal, and that appeal immediately triggered a stay, putting that 15-week ban into effect. So there were a couple hours where that law was not into effect, and then it went back into effect. And so we've just seen this change rapidly across the nation since the Dobbs decision came down on June 24th.
And Megan, this must throw those who provide this care and the patients who seek it into almost a constant state of uncertainty and unknowing about what is legal, what isn't, what can be provided and what can't. That must create not only chaos, but confusion.
That's right, Major. Talking to abortion providers in some of these states, the laws may be changing day by day, hour by hour, but that's really hard for clinics when they're trying to figure out when to schedule procedures. And so in some states, that means that some clinics may have just shut their operations entirely in light of the uncertainty. In some states, I'm thinking about Utah and Louisiana, abortion clinics halted operations when those states' trigger bans went into effect. When the courts then blocked the enforcement of those bans, they started resuming abortion procedures again. But you're right. It makes it incredibly difficult for people to plan their own abortions. If they're seeking abortions, it makes it difficult for doctors to figure out their schedules. It basically throws this entire system of care into a state of uncertainty.
So those who are trying to protect and defend abortion rights, they're filing lots of petitions. Is that a long-term strategy, or is that basically something to delay the inevitable as long as possible? Because if I read the Supreme Court ruling clearly, meaning they were pretty clear, and I tried to read it as such, this is a state matter, and if state legislatures have made a decision, eventually that's going to be imposed. At least that's how I see it. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so I think to some extent that's true, especially in some of these deep red states where you have a very conservative state Supreme Court. Any requests for the lower courts to block these laws may just be a temporary stopgap measure. But, I think it's worth noting that even though state legislatures, will have the say, many of them have already put in place laws, again, trigger laws or laws that were enjoined that are now taking effect, and more may pass laws in the coming weeks and months and years. I think it's also worth noting that a lot of those laws are going to end up in the state Supreme Courts, and the state Supreme Courts will have the final say, in lieu of Congress passing some sort of federal abortion law. It's going to be state Supreme Courts who have the final say in looking at those laws that legislatures pass and say, does this law align with our state's constitution? And those state Supreme Courts are going to have the opportunity to either say, yes, abortion is protected under the state's constitution, or no, there is no constitutional right to abortion to be found here in this state.
And Megan, I think it's worth pointing out that in some states, this is not a current debate. Some states have made it clear that they support abortion rights and are going to maintain that access even after the Supreme Court's decision. True?
That's correct. Yeah. So we've seen in about, half the country, it's expected that, at least for now, abortion will remain legal. In some of those states, legislatures have explicitly passed laws to say, we believe that abortion should be allowed through viability up to 24 weeks. Some say we protect the right to abortion throughout pregnancy. Some state Supreme Courts have already ruled that there's a constitutional right to abortion. And then now we're seeing ballot measures as well, attempting to codify the right to abortion in state constitutions.
And real quickly, Megan, in the midterm elections, one of the messages from Democrats will be if Republicans take over, there might be a federal change to what is allowed in all states, correct?
Yeah, that is the big conversation. It is in the hands of states absent federal action on this issue. And so I think the big question that a lot of advocates and lawmakers at the state level are looking at is, okay, hey, we can pass what we want for now, but what action is Congress going to take? And that ultimately will set the rules for the entire country. But in the meantime, it's in the hands of the states.
Influencing the conversation for 2022 and 2024. Megan Messerly of Politico, thank you very much.
Thanks, Major.